Hi, everyone. Welcome to the download. My name is Mike Dorezzo, Joel Lowe.
Hey,
So, we've been doing this series for a little bit now. This is about finding a new job and tips and tricks for you guys as you're looking. And probably, if you're like many other people, you'll probably start looking in December. So, we figured we'd get a little early in and provide some tips and tricks and everything else. January's coming. I would imagine the final wave of the Great Resignation will probably hit. Joel and I talked about this before,
yep,
probably hit in January, February,
yep,
as bonuses pay out and everything else. So if you're looking, here's some good tips and tricks. I know people don't look for jobs frequently sometimes.
yeah,
So here's some good ideas to keep in mind, right? Some things that you're like, oh, I wish I would have known about that before I started the process and everything. So just to kind of recap, Joel, let's go through some of these recap items.
right. So the best time to look for a job is when you have one, right? You can be more choosy about what you do. You're kind of more clear-headed on what companies and things and situations you put yourself in. Versus when you don't
Absolutely.
have a job, you're like, I need income, right?
You're
Hey,
panicky.
I
Yeah.
gotta go ahead and get something. So you kind of settle on certain things that you may not settle on when you have a job, right? Because there's no pressure, right?
Yeah.
Network, right? Make sure that you reach out to your network and talk to them about, hey, what's going on? You're looking for
Yeah.
something. There may be jobs that we talked about before that haven't even been posted yet. But
Yeah.
there's people who are like, hey, I would love to have you on the team. And some people may create a job for you, right? Hey,
Yeah.
we'll make something
Yeah.
happen. Right? We need you
Yeah.
here. I've seen that
Yeah.
as well.
And sometimes just remember it may not be a good fit, right? Don't try and
Right.
put that what they call the square peg in the round hole thing.
Right.
Don't try and force it. If you're like, I don't want to do this. If there's any part of you that says I don't want to do this, then don't do it. Have
Right.
no regrets about this whole job search, right? And to Joe's point, run to a job, not from a job, right?
Right.
If you're just upset about one job, some facet or something about it, see if you can change it, right? If there's something you don't like about it, just make sure you're committed to finding that new job and finding one that you want. Make sure you tailor your resume. We talked about that in the previous
Yep.
episode, where you look at that job description, you look at your resume, you know that you can do that job, but does your resume say that?
Right.
Right? Does it talk
Right.
about that? And that's more than just the application tracking system bypass and getting through that process. That's really just HR going, I don't see it. I don't see where it
Right.
says this person can do these jobs. Um, Stay ready, right? We talked about
Stay
this.
ready.
Research the companies that you're interviewing for. Have those job descriptions ready. If you apply for a job, copy and save that job description. Sometimes they disappear off the job board
Right.
because they have all the applicants they need and want. So they remove the job code. So if you apply for it, keep it, save it. Print a PDF off the website. Um, what
Interview
else?
them. Interview
Yeah,
them. Right. I mean, you're not the only one. They shouldn't just be asking you questions. You should be asking them questions. It should be a dialogue. Right. Um,
absolutely,
they should walk away feeling like they just went through an interview as well. Right.
absolutely.
And we talked about the tricks and tips to ask certain questions to get certain answers. Take notes. Take good
Take
notes.
notes.
Right.
Yeah.
Write down people's name and what they do when they introduce themselves. Right. Address
Right.
them by their name. Right. And bring your examples, your real world examples, and add them into it. Right. And we talked about that as well in a previous episode. So
Right.
uh, walk around with clear understanding of whether you really want the job. And we talked about that. About you can, if it doesn't work for you, you can say I'm good. Right. Nope. Walk away. And then last but never least, don't give up. Right. Mike's talked about the hundred jobs he applied for, and he is super qualified. And it just takes a while, right? And you always want the
Just takes a while. Yeah.
right. So
Don't
it's
don't give up.
coming. Don't give up. So
Absolutely.
now,
All right.
what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so we're talking about negotiations. So you got past the interviews, you
Right.
filled out the applications,
Yep.
you talked, you beat the street, you talked to your peers and networking, you talked to
Yeah.
former mentors and bosses and figured out you found the perfect job. You've gotten into HR, you've talked to HR, you've talked to your future boss, you've talked to
Hmm.
your potential new peers. Now is the negotiation part. And I'll be fully honest, this was a component in my career where I haven't done the best job of doing things, and it wasn't until recently in my career where I started to learn that this is exactly where this needs to take place. Right? You
Hmm.
need to get in early, you need to get in before you start the job, before you sign anything, this is where it starts. And Joel has some great points and everything. So let's go ahead and talk through these. Let's start with the first one, right?
So I always ask the HR person what the process is, right? From
Right.
start to beginning. Right? How long is this looking? How long does it take? What is your time frame in which you're trying to hire this person, right?
Right.
That gives you a lot of information right off the bat, right? That lets
Right.
you know, like, hey, it's going to be a lengthy process, or no, we're moving pretty quick. We really want to get somebody in. It also lets me know that this is a key position for them. You may hear some
Right.
people say, yeah, we're not going to rush this. We're going to wait till we find the right person. I'm always like, yeah, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So then my next question always like, so how do you know when you have identified the right person, right? So I mean, what does that look like,
He has a
right?
birthmark.
Yeah,
He's the spoken one in prophecy. You're like,
a
okay,
light
you
will
don't need
a
to
light
leave
will
this part.
shine on him right when he gets
Right.
in the door, right? So then
Right.
I'll grab the light real quick, just shine it on myself, right? Don't put your resignation in until you get an offer letter and you
Right.
know the process, right?
And you
So
have been accepted. Ooh, and you have been accepted. So, one
right,
large former company I worked for gave me an offer letter. I signed it, did all the paperwork, and then they did the background check. And I didn't realize that the background check that they were conducting would take as long as it did. It was literally the afternoon of the last day of my current job. I'd already put my notice in. They were celebrating my party of, hey, we're going to miss you. And I'm like, you think I could maybe work as a contractor next week or the week after? And they called that afternoon and say, yeah, well, we just finished your background check. I'm like, well, that's good
right,
because I start on Monday. Um, so yeah, just make sure that everything is in a row. Again,
right.
key to what Joel said, understand the HR hiring process. Is there another background check? Is there
Right,
drug tests? Is there anything that I need to do before I get started?
right.
Um,
When is my
and
start
then
date, right? Know that, right? Because
yeah,
we talked about this in the green room. Like some companies they only do onboarding once a month,
right,
right? And if
right,
that's the case, and you get hired like 2 days after they just had their onboarding for that month, you're not starting for a whole month,
right,
right? So you need to know
right,
that. Also know your current jobs, how they handle things, right? Is it a 2 week notice? Is it a 3 week notice? Right? Do they march you out right after you give your notice? And if that's so, then you need to grab all the stuff you need out of your office and be prepared for that.
oh, right,
Yeah.
right. And in
Before you
fact,
give
like
your
it.
2 weeks.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Yeah, before you give your notice, you need to do that.
But
Like you need to
before,
prepare.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. I start bringing stuff home shortly, right? Yeah. Don't be obvious.
Yeah, and I'm like,
don't,
big
don't,
boxes like, oh, I'm just taking
don't.
some
Can,
stuff.
can you
Are
hold the
you
door for
kidding?
me? I can't
Yeah.
get this cart of my stuff out. And
Right.
you're like,
Right.
why do you have a cart of your stuff, Mike?
What are you
You know,
doing?
bringing it
Right.
home, dusting it off, bringing it back.
Right.
I'll bring it back.
I'm bringing it back. Hey, didn't you come in with that refrigerator? Yeah, it's broken. Yeah,
It's
broken. Need a new
there's
one.
a light out on this Christmas tree. I'm going to take it back home. You know, no, you're not.
No,
No,
you're not.
you're not. I've
No,
read
you're not.
that Dr. Seuss
You
story.
you about to quit.
Um, you're
You about
about to
to leave.
quit. You're about to self-eject. Um, yes, but know your company's current resignation process. Your current company's resignation process. I was listening talking to somebody and I read the resignation process. Like, whoa, I need to give 3 weeks notice in order to be eligible for rehire. And that even though you're like, I'm never coming back here.
Never
Take a
coming
picture of me. I'm never coming back.
back.
Understand that they may do background checks with this company before, and a lot of states say, well, you can't give a background check. You can only give two items of information: dates of employment and eligibility for rehire, and that's it.
Right.
But that second one, that eligibility for rehire, is just as important as being honest about your employment dates.
Yep.
If you're not eligible for rehire, they can ask why.
Right.
That's a loaded question. You're like, did he do something he really shouldn't have, or was it he just terminated himself a week early? Just be cognizant of that.
Right.
Um, we talked about the start date not controlled by the hiring manager.
Right.
But when your background check finishes, that's something I wish on no one.
Right.
Make sure your background check is complete. And if you need to push your hire date back, understand when that new employee onboarding process is. And if that impacts that at all, like it
Right.
could be another 2 weeks. You're like, okay, then put in a 3 week notice or something like that.
What is
Um,
your probation time, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
'cause
good one.
that's important to know. Like
Yeah,
when is it they can just fire you without cause, right?
right,
Is it 30 days, 90 days, is a year? Um, don't get me wrong, if your state is a right to work state, then they can fire you whenever. But it's good to
right.
know, right? Just
Yeah,
hey, it may take them a little bit longer. They may have to document it, right, after
r-
90 days, right, that it didn't work
right,
out. So
right.
you need to know those, right? You need to
Yeah.
be on your best behavior for whatever that time period is. Then afterwards, you can just act a fool.
No, don't do that. Just be
No.
the person you want to be and work hard.
Yeah,
Um,
what he said. What he
uh,
said.
so what does your entire compensation package look like?
Right.
So it's not just about pay, right? It really isn't. It's not just about your salary or your hourly wage. It is the entire package. How do you accrue vacation? How could
Mhm.
you use vacation time? Is there vacation time that you're not allowed to take during certain periods of
Yep.
employment, right? I've known people who couldn't take time off because the school year was starting, or
Mhm.
it was people were signing up for classes, and so all hands on deck, even though that person had nothing to do with that. There's a lot that goes into place here, and you're like, well, I like my summertime. So like, yeah, you're not taking off August because that's when we do, people
Right.
are signing up for classes.
Yep.
Um so pay period dates, is it every week, every 2 weeks, once a month? If you go from biweekly or weekly to once a month, that is a massive adjustment. when
Huge.
is your when is your first paycheck?
Right.
Right. So I've had it where like, oh yeah, our pay period ends Friday. You're like, okay, well, I'm only going to get a half a check. And you're like,
Right.
and you're not going to get it for another 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's huge. You need to know that.
That's huge. You need to know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so it might be 3 weeks before you get paid, or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Again, I
That's
knew
money.
somebody who got paid once a month. They didn't get paid for a month and a half.
Yeah. Or the fact of like when your benefits kick in and when they're gonna be pulled out, right? So you can
Right.
get your first check and feel like, okay, we're good.
Right.
And then when your benefits kick in, your check looks totally different. You're like,
Right.
what has happened? Like,
Right.
hey, my money's wrong. No, you just got two pay periods where your insurance wasn't in there, right?
Right. Right.
And now it's adjusted. So just understand that as well.
Right. And then part of that package is benefits, right? So you had a good question about, can I get a copy of that benefits brochure? And I've
Yeah,
I've had some companies who really want you to join. They give that to you up front, like, hey, this is
yeah.
a copy of our
You can look at
our
it. Yeah,
benefits. Look it over, make sure you're comfortable with it.
right. And then
And
call, read it. Like I call them and I'll ask questions, right? So even if you like, I don't have time to call. Well, get
right,
on the phone and call them and say, hey, here's what I currently have, and I'm
right,
moving to this and this which I have. Can you tell me the comparison of the two?
right,
Or sometimes most big companies use the same one, right? They are
right,
both on Anthem or they're both on Blue Shield and Cross. And you just ask that question, like, what am I losing from here? And
right,
they'll tell
right.
you,
Yeah,
oh, your company does this and they don't do this, or you got to pay more for this. Your deductible will be more of this, or more of
right.
this is covered. Oh, okay, cool. And now you can
Yeah,
go in with that understanding of like, hey, I'm going to pay a little bit more in insurance, so I
right.
need to ask for a little bit more in my pay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And vacation time, paid time, again, how much do I accrue? How often do I accrue? When am
Mhm.
I allowed to first use it?
Yes.
Because like in my current company, you can't use it for the first 6 months.
Right.
That was the initial one. It was like, whoa. Some people didn't like that. And
Yeah.
so, and they were like, well, it used to be a year. And you're like, whoa, okay, you're gonna burn people out. And you
Yeah.
know,
And
that changed.
let them know if you have a trip already scheduled,
Yeah.
right? So they
Right.
can tell you like, hey, you can't use your PTO for 6 months. You're like, hey, we have a trip to Greece.
Right.
It is paid
Right.
for.
It
We
is
are
paid
going,
for.
right?
It is
So we need to figure this out.
non-refundable.
I cannot not go, right? If
Right.
you want me to stay happily married, right?
Right.
You have to let them know that, and they should be able to work that out between your
Yeah.
HR managers and whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
but you
It
can't
could,
you can't then get hired and then come and be like, hey, I forgot to tell you, no.
right. Yeah. I had an employee, and granted, this is legally protected, but he came in, he was like, oh, by the way, in 35, 45 days, I may be out for a month because of my military duties. And I was like, Okay, can't complain about it. It's
Can't
protected.
do anything. It's
Can't do
protected.
anything about it. I was like, all right, it is what it is. Thank you. You probably should have let me know, a little bit sooner after you got hired. But literally, I was like, okay. And then he was going to take a year off. Like he was planning on taking a year off. And I was like, okay, well, let me know. And that's another good thing is remember that there are some things that are protected, right?
Hmm.
You don't owe anybody an explanation. If you were pregnant during the interview process, do not share that with them.
You don't have
Don't
to.
be forthcoming with that.
Nope,
I don't
you don't.
care if you were 8 months pregnant. Don't be forthcoming with it. Ignore it. Just ask somebody. I'm sorry. Why are we asking that question?
Right,
Ask them because
right.
it's not legal to ask those. There's certain types of questions, right? So
Yep,
just be careful of that.
yep.
Um, 401k pension, retirement funds. When does it start? Like for me, I think it didn't start for the first 3 months of employment. When are you vested? What is their match program? That was a good one that you had. Talk about match program, Joel, for people
So
who
it's
may not
free
know.
money, right? Essentially, it's just free money, right? So
Right,
they say, hey, if you put in 6%, we'll match at 3, right?
right,
So put in the 6% because you're getting 3% of that for free, right? They're
right,
they're gonna match you. So
right,
total, it's just free money, right? It makes no
right.
sense to ever not do the match, right?
Yeah,
You may not want to do nothing else, but take the free money, right?
yeah,
I'll take the free money all day, right?
yeah.
So ask those questions because you don't know.
Right,
Like there's a bunch of benefits that you get with companies that you don't take advantage of. Tuition reimbursement, pet insurance,
yeah,
legal services, free bank accounts if you work for a bank. Like there's just
yeah.
stuff that you can get that we take no advantage of. We only think about health benefits, bonus, right?
Right,
But there's other questions to ask, like even with your bonus, like is it paid out quarterly? Can it
right,
be paid out quarterly? Do I have to
right,
wait a year? Like what if I
right,
want mine quarterly? Is that
right,
possible? I took a
right.
job and I was under annual, but I found
Okay.
out that other people were getting quarterly, and I was like, "Yo, like I didn't even know I could ask that." And they were like, "Oh yeah, you
Right.
should ask."
Yeah,
So
you should ask that at day one.
I had no idea that was a question to ask, and literally, this is what this whole episode is about: questions
Right,
that you did not know. Right?
right,
Hey, can I get stock options? Do you have that? At
right,
my level, is that available? They may not have it on there for you to know, but you ask
right,
for it, they say, well, we can check, right?
right.
But if you don't ask,
Yeah,
they're not going to tell you. And I've had that happen as well, where I just playing around was like, yo, there's stock options available? And they were like,
yeah,
oh, well, I have to ask. And they came back and was
yeah.
like, we can make that available for you if you want that part of your package. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would like that.
No, I'm good. I'm just curious.
I
I'm
would.
curious.
I think so. I
Yes.
talked it over with myself, and yeah, I think I would like that. Right? I mean,
Right.
so again, they're not going to be upfront for the most part. They want to get you for as cheap as possible, because it's a business, right?
It is a
Well,
business. Right.
again, what you don't want to do is look back and be upset because you feel some kind of way because you did not get
Right.
everything you wanted. But again, it's on you to ask those questions. All they can say is
Absolutely.
no.
Right.
Right? You're no
Absolutely.
no no worse than you were before, right?
Right. And be nice about it. Be
Mhm.
be be
Mhm.
pleasant and positive about it. Like,
It's a
hey, do you,
conversation.
it's so yeah, what do you guys can you guys tell me a little bit about your paid time off, your vacation leave?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we give everybody 2 weeks. You're like, okay, well, I'm leaving a job where I got 4 weeks vacation. Um, you know, is that possible? No, we don't do four. All right, well, could I have 3 weeks? Because now I'm losing a week, but I'm at least getting 1 week off of what we're doing. Well, we
Right,
don't usually give that till 5 weeks, but let me check. Right.
right.
And they'll give that. I mean, that happened at the previous company I worked for. They came in with, well, you only get 2 weeks. I'm like, well, I'm leaving a job where I get 5 weeks and I'm really going to be leaving a lot of money on the table.
Right.
Um, and they changed it. They changed it, which brings me to the thing: just because you agreed on salary, or they won't budge on salary, doesn't mean negotiations are over.
It's not
Right?
over.
There are other things. There are other things that you can talk about. Right? Sign
Yep.
on bonus, extra vacation. Some companies don't have vacation time. Right? Like at some roles at a certain level, senior leadership and above, you don't have days of vacation. Right? The CEO of the
Right.
company doesn't get 2 weeks vacation. He or she takes off whenever they want.
Right.
Um, Now they may not be able to take off more than two
Right.
weeks a year
Right.
because of their job.
Right.
I mean that's my life right now. Like I can't really
Yeah.
take off more than 3 weeks anyways.
Right.
But if I wanted to, that was there. If I needed to take care of somebody or something else, that capability and functionality was there.
Right.
Um, anything else you want to drive
And
on
my
that?
thing is, we talked about in the beginning when you first talk to HR, you go over salaries, right? You ask about your range, what you look at, and whatnot. And then this is where you need to after doing all the research of the benefits and things like that, you come back and you start talking about that number. Well, hey, we
Right,
talked about this number here, right? And they're gonna be like, yeah. My thing is after going through and call people by their name, talking with Bob, the manager of the whole program, and he really went over the roles and responsibilities. And then also looking at the fact that I'm going to lose a week of vacation, that the benefits are not quite as adequate as the benefits I currently have. I would
right,
like to renegotiate or talk about the salary number, right? I think it's not currently correct for the
right,
market and what I'm looking at, right? And this is
right,
why, right?
right.
And you tell them why, and you say, I'm more at this number here. And they'll say, ooh, that's top end or that's kind of high. And then you say, well, is there any way that maybe we can meet in the middle and I get an extra week of vacation, right? I
Yeah,
think that would make me feel good and also makes you feel good, right? Because we both met in the middle, kind of go see, I'm ready to start. I
yeah,
just those are concerns I have.
right,
And then they can either broach that with whoever, or they may be able to just negotiate there because they have the power. Okay, Joel, hey, that
right,
sounds good. I'm pretty sure I can get that through. Let me go ahead and write that down, and they send it over, and you're good to go, right?
right.
But you don't know, you don't ask, right?
No,
You must.
yeah, you got to ask. Yeah, so let's start talking about takeaways.
Okay.
Um, so make sure you get what you need and what you want, right? So I always
Hmm.
tell people write down
Yes.
exactly what you need. What do you need to be salary wise? What are you looking for? What is that 5, 10, 15, 20% breakdown? Right. And I said
Yep.
it 5, 10, 15, 20% breakdown of salary.
Yep.
Right. What do those look like so that you can visualize they are offering me this that's in that 5 to 10, that 15 to 20 range.
Yep.
And you know exactly what you're getting. Feel good about what you're negotiating for, but negotiate a minimum what you need and what you want.
Right.
Understand also that because you're asking for it now, you may not get it. So, like, if I hired somebody at my current company today, payroll increases happen in January. They're not going to get a January payroll increase.
Right.
So they're going to be waiting a year and 2 months before
Mhm.
they get another payroll increase.
Or ask that question, right?
Right,
Hey, question for you. I know that I'm getting hired now, and it's November, right?
right.
Will January, when y'all do your what do you call it when it's
Reviews, annual
your
reviews.
reviews and you then add the inflation? Will I
Right,
get that, right? I
right,
understand that right now I won't get additional money towards my salary, but will I get
right,
the inflation? Because that's when
right,
y'all update everything for that. Ask that
right.
question. Oh,
Yeah,
I don't know. We usually don't when it's this close. No, no, no. I think that I would like that, right? So if you're
right.
giving everybody, 2 to 3% or whatever the number is, I would like that, right?
Yeah,
I would like to be considered for that. How do we
yeah. Just
go about
make sure that's part of your dollar figure, right?
that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Because then you get
that's a
another
great
bump.
thing.
And my thing is
Yeah,
ask them because they may say, "Well, that's fine, Joe. I talked to them. They don't have an issue with that." So
yeah.
now you just
2%.
negotiate your salary, and you're going to end up getting whatever the cost of living raise is going to be, right?
Right,
3, 4%
right.
automatically.
Not
They're
a
going to go
merit
ahead,
increase. Right,
not a merit increase, the cost of living increase that they're going to give
right.
out, and you
So
just make that clear. Like,
yeah,
hey, I know that you're doing a merit, and I'm not talking about that because I'm only going to be here 2 months, right? But the
right,
cost of living increase that you usually give, I like to be considered for that because I
right.
mean, I am still going to be affected by that.
Right, right. And then vacation time, we talked about that.
Yeah,
Stock
that's it.
options,
Yeah,
things that are important to you as an organization. Is this a startup? Do you build equity in the company as a
right.
startup? Is it, if it's an S corp where it's a company owned corporation, what does that look like? We didn't even talk about that.
We did.
But those are important things. Understand what you need.
Yep.
Understand what you want. Everything in between is negotiable, right?
Oh, and
And
I think we talked about, but we didn't go into like vested. What we mean by vested, right?
oh yeah,
So when you get stock options, there's a period of time that you have to work at the company before that you own those stocks, right?
right,
It could be every year they release a third of it to you,
right,
so in 3 years you'll be fully vested. or it takes you a year. Like you need to ask those questions, and you can negotiate to say, hey, I would like so much of it up front to be vested at a
Right.
certain level, right?
Right.
As my
Within a
package,
year. Right.
right? Within that first year. And then afterwards, this. And then how much stock will I be able to get annually? Right?
Right.
As part of my package.
Right.
Those are questions you want to know because if you ever leave the company, that stock options are yours, or you're forfeiting that, right? And you need to know
Right.
that as well, because depending on how much the stock is, you could be leaving a nice chunk of change to go
Yeah.
somewhere else, and you need to talk with that new company. Like, I am leaving 2/3 of my
Well,
stock, right?
yeah. I'm
It's
leaving
split up
25 grand
here,
on the table, 50
right?
grand on the table.
And
Yeah.
and we need to talk about that in my signing bonus, right?
Yeah.
Or I'll see you in 2 years.
Right. 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 Right.
Right,
Um, Understand everything you're getting before you commit. Right.
right,
So
right.
read everything, understand everything.
Yep.
Don't just read it, be like, yeah, I read it. You're like, did you understand it?
Did you
Right.
understand it?
And you have a good point. 15 years ago, I had to research, what does vested mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right. What is
Like,
that?
well, I got a 401k, they're doing company match, but you don't get that company match until you are vested. You're like, whoa, 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 what does that mean? You're like,
Right.
well, that means you're here for 3 years before that becomes your money. And I'm like, guess I'm here for 3 years.
See,
Um,
2 to 3. Yeah.
See,
You need to
yeah,
be here.
I'm here for 3.
I'm here for 2.
I remember joking with my boss at one of my jobs, like, I just want you to know I'm fully vested as of today.
Yeah.
and,
I'm in,
and
baby.
she
Let's do
she laughed. She's like, "You're not going anywhere." 3 months later, I quit. Just so we're clear,
We'll
you're
let you
on
know.
borrowed time.
I'm, I'm vested now.
I will say this: that job, I worked until 7:30 at night. My last day, people were gone. I was the only one in the building. I left my laptop at the IT guy's desk. He's, I trust you. Just leave it. Just
Let,
leave your
let
badge and
me
just stuff
let
here.
me tell you how terrible that is from a
I,
security standpoint. Like we can do a whole nother podcast on why
we
this should never happen, right? He's still on the network on his last day at 7 o'clock and turned
yeah,
in his own laptop. That is
yeah,
god awful, right?
and nobody around. But no,
It
and I
the
had access to
system
everything. I had the
system should
keys
be
to the
walked
kingdom
off
at that
the
place.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you how
Um,
terrible that is. But that's neither
and
here nor there.
understand the entire package, right?
Right.
Make sure you have no regrets,
No
right?
regret.
What's it look like to your current package,
Yes.
right? There may be some things you're getting in your current package, you're not getting a new one. Just because it's both Blue Cross Blue Shield or both Aetna or both whatever Anthem, that
Yeah,
does
yeah.
not mean that they're equal, right?
Nope.
We've had that discussion, you and I, like, oh yeah, your company did that, yeah, we don't do that. You pay for
We don't do
everything.
it. Yeah. Uh, you need to know. You
Yeah,
need to
I
know.
I had a company who were like, "We'd love to hire you. It's $150 a month for parking," and I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm not paying for that." And they're like, "Well, you have to," and I'm like, "I'm not
No.
paying you so that I can come to work for you for
Yeah.
less money. Like,
No.
that doesn't work out for me. I'm not gonna pay
No.
$1,800 a year. Why don't you just pay me 1,800 more and we'll just call it even?" No, we don't
Right.
do that. I was like, all right. I mean, and like I still thought about that job. They still wanted to hire me at 25 grand less than what I'm making. And I'm like, just so I was absolutely clear, I told you how much I was making. And they're like, yeah. Like, you guys are terrible negotiators. Oh my
Right.
God.
Right.
Um,
Let's
and you
go with
make me
that.
pay for parking?
No.
No.
Hey, also
So
too, as a takeaway, don't forget that if you are the person in the family that has everybody on their insurance,
yeah.
you need to ask when your insurance starts, right?
Yeah.
Some
Huge.
companies it's the full month after, right?
Yeah.
So even if you start in the middle of the month, you'll have to wait a whole nother month before your
Correct.
insurance starts, depending on how it
Yeah.
is. And you can negotiate to say, no, 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 I have kids, I have family, I need my insurance to start immediately,
Yeah.
right? They can do that.
Yeah.
They choose not to. That's not their normal policy, but they can. Trust me, I've
Yeah.
seen it, right?
Yeah.
I ask it all the time. Hey, 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 who? When is my insurance start? And if they say it'll start at the beginning of the month, I say I'm starting at the beginning of the month then, right? Because I need insurance to be day one,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
if they say you got to start on the last day of this month, so that the first day you're a full employee, whatever it is, I just need insurance,
Yeah,
right? Well, and that's important to know. That's where those questions come in, right?
that's
It
huge.
can be the greatest insurance ever, but if you don't get it for 2 months, you literally are walking around like, hey, everybody, nobody gets sick. We're
Did you
not going to,
sniffle? You go in
hey,
the
wait,
isolation tank.
stop that. Yeah. That is a terrible place to be in, right?
Right.
Because I went to the doctor in that period, right?
Ooh,
My kid needed, and that bill was terrible. Right? I
yeah.
was like, yo, what are we doing? Terrible,
Healthcare in America.
terrible. So,
Terrible. Terrible.
and then
That's
always
that's a
remember,
shout out to my brothers and sisters out in the UK and countries where
yeah,
socialized medicine.
Canada, what's up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Canada. Yeah.
our
So
up north brothers,
my up north.
yeah,
Yeah. America's attic.
yeah.
Um yeah, yeah, we're deep enough in the video. Nobody's gonna hear that.
Yeah.
All right, well, that does it for us for this week. Joel, any party thoughts?
Hey, knowing is half the battle, man.
Still gonna
Shout
get sued.
Hey, also to shout out to the, White Power Ranger, man. RIP.
Oh yeah, green. I thought he was green Power
Well, he's
Ranger.
white, green, he's been
Yeah,
on the
everybody, they
scene
just,
for a minute, yeah.
I don't know why you need to bring that in here. Don't bring that in.
I know, and we wore white and green in honor of Tommy. Hey,
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, and that brings a good point. This is the time of year when people have the biggest challenges. Um,
yep,
if you are hurting, if you are lost, afraid, alone, don't hesitate to reach out. People do love you. People do care about you. They are
yep,
out there. If
yep,
there's a suicide hotline, please reach out. If you have
yep.
thoughts about it, if you're thinking about it, please reach out. It's not worth it.
Nope.
It will get better. It will get better. It does get better. It has
Yep,
to get better. But in order to do that, you have to reach out. Just pick up the phone, call someone, right? And if they don't have time to talk, tell them that you're hurting. Let them know. Let people know that you're hurting. Let people know
yep,
that you are in a bad space before it
yep.
gets to a bad space. Okay.
100%.
So that's near and dear to Joel and I's heart. Just take care of yourselves out there. Um, if you like what you heard, please hit the like button. If you have comments, if you want to hear different things or more things, or you have anecdotes you want to share, please leave them in the comments either in LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, and just let us know because we'd like to know. We're also starting a Facebook page
Yeah,
where we'll start adding this content in as well. I have a website. I know Joel. I believe Joel has a website as well.
yeah,
But reach out to us. Let us know if you need to hear anything or talk about anything. We'll talk about it on the broadcast, and
yeah.
we'll try and get this out every week.
Y'all take care.
All right. Thanks, everyone.